What's going on, guys? Today we've got another reaction to a deep dive NHL 25 trailer, and it is the one that I have been most excited for. Obviously, it's franchise mode. I spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours in franchise mode every year. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I buy the game every year, even though it's the exact same. I'm just like you. But before we do, I'm going to ask that you guys slap that subscribe button, the like button, and leave a comment. Let me know if you're excited for franchise mode. Let me know if you like the video or if you don't like it. Just let me know. And please help me contribute to bringing that number up. I want to see that at least at 25% or so before we upload again. Without further ado, let's jump right into the reaction. I'm going to try and pause less this time, unless it's egregious and really warrants it, but let's find out. Let's dive in together. Let's go.
Hey everyone, this is Gern Sumo, Senior Game Designer for NHL 25. Today I'm here to talk to you about franchise mode. Went into franchise mode, everything from a
Right off the bat, new hub, new screen.
brand new streamlined hub, box scores, game logs, and split stats.
Split stats is kind of cool. Hang on. Not that it's like overly important for any information as far as franchise mode, but again, it's different. That's all we've been asking for this whole time.
Contract clauses and CBA up.
Oh my goodness. I might be pausing 100 times today. Hang on. We're getting no movement clauses and trade protection? Oh my goodness. Guys, we're only, what, 15 seconds into a 17-minute video? This could be a long one. I'm starting to get
Revamped
optimistic
player and
here.
coach Conversations and some community requested tuning changes that we did.
Okay, nothing overly different there.
Over here, we have our brand new streamlined hub. It's a unique change from previous years. The goal here was to make less tabbing and surface more information for you as users to be able to get the most.
That's nice. A lot of the stuff that you're going to use more often seems to be grouped together, so that's good.
That needs to be done on a more regular basis is there at your fingertips. You'll also notice a bunch of new widgets that are on. You'll have the projected goalie widgets. I'll show you the
Projected goalies is kind of cool. I like that. It's different again.
Right hand side, a matchup widget showing you how you're matching up against.
That's cool. Hang on, let me get out of the way here. Just to see how you match up in terms of every category who you're playing against. It's a nice little touch they've added. Let's keep going.
And on top of that, we've added the ticker that's in the trade deadline mini game at the bottom, which will.
So you get a ticker that's kind of scrolling through the league leaders and stat categories all the way through, it looks like.
Calendar to a few new.
Okay, so we've got, the player conversation. If you're playing with morale on, which your boy does not because I can't stand that, I like to sim through very quickly. But, you know, for the people who go deep dive into owner mode and morale, all that kind of stuff on, more power to you. It looks like this kind of streamlines things for you, makes it a little bit easier to find.
New tabs that allow you to talk to two box scores. Will bring up all the games that are played in the NHL. So all 1,300 plus games, or if you have a custom league, all however many games you've chosen to do. You can go to any game, not just your own teams. You can go to any game and select a game and view the box score for that game. I can view.
All right, so now theoretically you could have a particular player looking at, maybe he's being underutilized in a system and he's still got low elite potential, something like that. If he's not getting the minutes you think he deserves, maybe now you can look at acquiring that guy and giving him more of an opportunity. That's kind of cool to be able to look at his ice time and everything.
Events that are from that game, who scored, what penalties were there, as well as the stats for each individual player on both teams, and including and split stats for each individual.
All right, let's take a look at split stats. Let's see here.
Here, I can check out his full career stats, and you'll notice that there's a new filter that's shown here, which is full career stats. Now you got game logs and split stats. So if I go into game log, I can look at every single game that he has played in this year, the standard stats that we track from minutes, shots, goals, assists, points, with date of the game, and the opponent of the game as well. So you can see how that player is doing against every single team and on a per game basis. In addition, you can also see the split stats. So you can see their last 10 games, their home split, their away split, their division split, conference, and on top of that, their monthly and then their per team stats. So
clearly much more of an emphasis on giving us as much information as possible, which, I mean, I'll speak for myself. That's all I've ever asked. Let us be as nerdy as possible with this franchise mode. Let us look at, hey, is my player terrible or does he struggle against a very good division?
How they have done against Florida, how they've done against Edmonton, Chicago, etc. And then lastly, we've also added an awards tab to the player info, and you'll be able to view any award that player
That's kind of cool. All right.
Career. So it's not just the last 5 years. If you have Alex Ovechkin, could be something that he won back in the 2010s. All that shows up on this screen and for you to play and look at with throughout the course of franchise mode.
All right, we're into contract negotiations. I think this is what I'm most interested to look at.
One of our biggest fan requests is we added no move, no trade clauses to
the
game. In addition, we also overhauled our contract negotiation system to fit that in. So now you'll notice when you come into the free agency screen, you'll see an org interest bar. Every single player has a contract interest bar and an organization interest bar.
Okay.
And those will now dictate whether or not a player will
Taking a lot more from like the Madden and the College Football 25, which I'm all for.
want to sign with your team. So if a player has a very low organization bar, you may need to convince him to actually join your team. Those two bars now dictate and change who you target in free agency, because it may not be possible for you to get the best free agent because they may not like your organization because of the taxes that you have, the market size that you have, your status as a contender. If they want to be playing on a championship team and you're a rebuilder, they may not want to join your team. Now, you can offer them other incentives. You'll see promises on the bottom right-hand corner and player requests. Certain players will have requests that they would
Huge.
like to have.
Oh my God, that's
Top
incredible.
line, power play or playing in the first line. And you'll also be able to give out clauses. So you'll see that you can give out no movement clauses, no trade clauses, modified no trade clauses. You can give out different structures, whether reduced,
Oh my God.
full. It'll change the number of teams that you can or cannot be traded to. So we've added a lot.
They did it. They did it. That's everything I've been asking for.
I'll give you an example of what I mean in terms of you have to persuade that player. Now, Sam Bennett here doesn't want to join my team. You're able to do certain actions to potentially win them over. You can charm them. You can gain some organization interest
Charm them.
if they take to it. So in this case, it did, which is great. Now you can now talk about the contract or go into the organization and kind of pitch them on the organization. So if I go into here, I can now pitch.
So basically, you can riz Sam Bennett up and offer him a no trade, and maybe he'll sign with you. So this isn't much different than either the coaching staff or the draft prospect system that we've had in the past. It's different because it affects free agency a little bit more. So in that regard, yes, technically it is new, I would say. But overall, it's a similar feature that we've seen before. It's going to feel repetitive, I would assume. You're going to be basically flipping a coin to see if you can convince a player to sign with you, but we'll see. I do wonder if you can like promise a leadership role or something like that as well too. That would be interesting.
And I also gave him a first line promise. So he's now on my team. So I can literally convince him from not
Okay, well, that kind of answers that. You can promise ice time at least.
Of no move and no trade clauses. Obviously, when you want to go and trade a player that has a trade clause, you're going to need to figure out what team they can or cannot be traded to. So if we go into Aaron Ekblad here, you'll see he has a modified no trade clause, and you can go into the new contract info screen that shows you the trade clause, the years that are left on the trade clause, and the teams that you can trade that player to.
That's awesome. I mean, that's really cool. They've actually narrowed it down to having a specific list of teams. I'm sure it'll all be Canadian teams in Buffalo.
If I put him on a team that he doesn't have a trade clause for, I would need to actually convince Ekblad to waive his no trade clause. So you can go into the proposed trade screen, select the player that you want to trade, and it'll automatically have you initiate a conversation with them. You'll see that I'll have to persuade the player into waiving their no trade clause. If failed, which means I can no longer have Ekblad be eligible to be traded to the Carolina Hurricanes.
Guys.
The other way to get them to talk about their clauses or their options is to actually go in through the new franchise hub. So if I went into Matthew Tkachuk here, I have different
I'm gonna let it cook a little bit here.
to have him potentially waive his clause or change his clause for the year. I'm able to get him to maybe give me a list of 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams, or outright waive his no trade clause. So I'm going to ask him maybe give me 1 team that he would want to potentially go for. And in this case, he actually did. So now I can go into Matthew Tkachuk's player card and figure out who he actually wants to be traded to. Now you can see that he has a modified no trade clause, but going to his contract info, he wants to go to the Montreal Canadiens. So I can now add him to the block for the Montreal Canadiens. And
Hey, weird choice, but that is a very cool feature. To be able to talk to a player and ask him to waive his no trade, give him a list of teams. Maybe there's a team performing very well at that time and that influences their decision. That's really cool. That's another element that just, you know what? So far, so good.
you'll be able to make a trade. The conversation engine allows you to kind of have a little bit of flexibility and how much you want that player to waive, whether it be a fully waive their clause or to kind of select a certain amount of teams. It allows you to pick a riskier or less riskier option to give the player still some agency as well.
Conversation engine. Okay. I'm sure this is going to be the same.
Another new feature that we've added is our brand new conversation engine. You've seen a little bit of it in the no move, no trade, but we wanted to make every conversation feel important and have a meaningful impact on your team.
I'm sure it
gone
won't
on
feel
the
repetitive
ice time
at all.
Conversations where players are complaining about things. It's now more of a proactive system where you are now assigning players goals or trying to make that player better or try to fit into your system as you need to. If I go into Korchinski here, you'll notice that there's two options for me to select from: season goal or on ice play. Each of these has their own subset of items that you'll be able to select through. For season goals, this actually influences player development, something that in the past you as a user didn't really have a lot of influence over. Now you will with season goals. So you can select a season goal. You'll have two options of short-term goals. So these are half season goals. They're shorter goals and they give you less of a reward potentially. And then we have long-term goals, which allow you to...
Okay, so this is something we've seen in Madden before. You can commit your goal at the start of the season. Obviously, the riskier you get, the better XP reward you get, but the higher chance of like firing you get in Madden, right? So maybe it affects player trajectory a little bit. Like maybe I don't know if it affects potential as much if they don't meet their goals. Might be more of a morale thing than anything.
Give stat challenge, an award challenge, and then an X Factor challenge.
Oh.
These challenges allow you to give a player potentially an X Factor ability, whether it be a
We got our answer right there. So you now have the potential to maybe get a player an X Factor based on their season goals. That's kind of cool. Again, very similar to Madden, which kind of has that same feature in place right now. We saw it a little bit in NHL 24, where if a player does excel, they might gain an X Factor, but now we have the ability to challenge them. And perhaps if they meet that challenge, get that X Factor reward.
superstar ability. Award challenges are asking a player to win an award, and by winning that award, they may gain attribute points as well. And then you have stat challenges, which you may ask a player to score X amount of goals, assists, or plus minus or block shots, and they will gain potential.
Okay, so you can now quantify what you want a player to achieve in order to maybe get a stat boost as well.
Can also go into the on ice play and potentially have them change their play style or their position. You'll notice on the
Wait a minute. Is that like player type and position?
upper right hand side of the screen that you have something called adaptability. Every player has adaptability rating. This adaptability rating allows us to control how likely a player will potentially adhere to being able to change to a new playing style or a position that they play. The younger the player, it'll actually...
You can persuade them to change their position. Okay, so if you have an elite offensively talented defenseman who maybe puts up like a minus 45 rating every year because their D awareness is terrible, maybe you want to play them on the wing.
Make it a little bit more easier for that player to be a little bit more malleable and a little bit more easier for them to learn that new play style or position. So an older player will be a little bit more set in their ways and may not be able to
well
switch
done,
to that
EA.
position or play style, but true to real life as well. So in this instance here, we're able to look at these two options of play style and position. I'll select to change his position. It'll give me options to be either straight up, change him out of left defense. I can move him to right defense as well. These are both persuades and they have different factors that weigh in. So in this case, I want to add a secondary position. To lower his defensive awareness rating, the harder it will be to convince him. If I want to change his position, players with higher defensive awareness rating will be harder to convince. So players that are really good at defense, they probably don't want to move out from defense. But if the player has a lower defensive awareness, you may be able to get them to change to a forward. Here I'll ask Korchinski to change his position. So in this case, that persuade failed. In many cases, the persuade may or may not work, but you do have the ability to change a player's position and play style. It all has a multitude of different factors that go into it. Again, we really wanted to give you as the user the ability to have more fidelity, more control over the players to fit within the system that you're trying to build.
So in addition, you can also talk to your head coach. You can talk
Okay,
about
we've got coach conversations now. Let's see what they've changed.
Season or your game plan for the team. And these essentially are buffs to your team that you get for the season, whether it be conditioning, strength training, skill training, 5-on-5 focus, power play, penalty kill, video sessions. So all of these will have different buffs and debuffs. I've selected power play. This will give my team a buff for the power play, but also have a debuff on my penalty kill. So in this case, I got him to adhere to that preseason focus. I can go back in and talk to him also about the game plan that he has. So we can talk about preferred lines. He is locked until the regular season, and I'll get into that as well. Ice time allocation is also locked until the regular situation for your team. So now that we're here in the regular season, I'm now able to chat with my coach. So if I'm in the edit line screen, I can hit the Y button to go into strategies and then bring up the coach card from here. I can go into this meeting availability and then chat with the coach about their game plan. So I can now talk to them about their preferred lines or ice time allocation. as that's no longer locked, I can get them to potentially change those things. So in this case, I want him to reorganize or lock players into certain lines. I can now do so. I persuaded them into being open to it. If in the instance where it fails, you can still force the coach to go through this flow. You will lose morale as a trade-off, but at the end of the day, you are the GM and you hire the coach.
Doesn't matter to me. I don't play with morale on, so.
So you are able to brute force your way through it. So in this case, I want to look at my forwards and I want to have my line 2 center be Elias Pettersson. So if I go into line 2 and center,
That's kind of crazy.
I can now lock in Elias Pettersson as the center for that line. Now I can also make his left wing. In this instance, I'll just put Jake DeBrusk. And then if I go into that align screen again, you'll notice that when I hit best lines now, those players should now get into that slot. You now see Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk in that role. So if I move Pettersson down to the 4th line,
That's cool. That's actually really cool.
It will always lock them into that line. So if he gets hurt and comes back into the lineup, it will remember that and put him back into the right spot. So you can lock all your lines exactly how you want it and really help the usability for playing with injuries on. So you're able to have your lines always constructed in the way that you want them, and the coach will make sure that they do best lines in that manner.
Community request. Here we go. Just GM connected. That's it. Just GM connected.
Another feature that we added to really help the roster sharing community was the addition of draft picks to the player.
Oh, that's nice.
Now
that's
you're
nice.
able to trade 5 years worth of draft picks in the player movement screen to keep up with the real world as you're waiting for the latest roster update from us.
As it should have been.
So in this case, I can trade Anaheim's and Edmonton's first round pick to the Buffalo Sabres, and then you'll be able to go in and see that Buffalo has Anaheim and Edmonton's first round pick, and you're able to upload this roster file to roster sharing.
That's going to be huge for trade deadline.
Download it with the correct draft picks, and you can then start your franchise mode when the latest trade comes out and you're waiting for the roster update. You'll be able to make the adjustment yourself and then go into franchise mode and start your franchise mode if you need to.
That's a big change there, as well as we've added a few more elite potential prospects into the draft. Make the league as you get later into later years refresh.
It's already so easy for scouting though. I don't want it to be easier with more elite players.
That player pool will have the overall be around the same amount as well. So
we added a lot to franchise mode this year. We had a lot of fun working on the game, and we can't wait for you to pick up early access on September 27th.
Sorry, brother, I won't be picking up early access, but honestly, overall, well done. So there's a lot to unpack there. Obviously, the big emphasis this year is a lot more on customization and stats. They want you to be able to have every single piece of information at your disposal to make the best informed decisions in franchise mode, which I'm all for. I mean, that's all I've been ever asking for, and GM Connected, which will probably be back next year, I would assume. Little disappointed we didn't get that announcement in this drop, but overall, guys, I mean, I'm not going to complain about franchise mode this year. I wanted a complete overhaul. I wanted it to feel different and look different, and guess what? They've delivered. Obviously, I won't be able to give you guys a full opinion until I try it myself on October 4th or whatever the release date is for people who aren't pre-ordering, but it looks promising. You know what? I didn't go into this optimistic, but now I am cautiously optimistic about this. I think we might finally have a product that rewards the offline community for once in the last 15 years. Just something as simple as the addition to trade draft picks in the offline roster moves category is something that I've been clamoring for the entire year. And now we've got it. So other than that, let me know what you guys think. I mean, if you're as excited as I am, let me know in the comments down below. What features do you like? What don't you like? Let me know. What would you still like to see going forward? But that's it for me, guys. I'm going to quit yapping. Let me know what you're most excited about down below or least excited about. And we will be sure to have a discussion in the comments down below. Thanks, guys. See you next time.